It's a great opportunity to be with you here this afternoon, and I very much look forward to your questions. I'll make a few comments. Maybe I'll start with the Jon Stewart show last evening in New York. And someone asked me as I was walking in, why would you do that? The answer, quite frankly, is pretty simple. His audience is basically 18 to 25-year-olds, and they get an awful lot of their news from him. And at a higher level, in terms of my own communications in a world where things are moving so rapidly and changing so constantly, how I communicate, how we communicate, and how we even begin to understand how younger generations are communicating is really the reason I did that, and have worked, quite frankly, to get on other mediums to, in fact, communicate and also try to listen. I was taken in watching the show just before I went on that John called up in a bunch. If you haven't seen it, and many of you would not have, I'm assuming, maybe that's a bad assumption, but I'm assuming you either didn't stay up that late or don't tune him in regularly. But he did a couple of pieces on Yemen, and he started out with, okay, let's call up the Google map so we can figure out where Yemen is. And what that is a reminder that the last time I think the American people really thought of Yemen was when coal got bombed in 2000. And so there is, and clearly just to look at the press and the discussions and the analysis, there's an awful lot going on right now focusing on Yemen, and I understand that. But it hasn't been something that has been broadly focused on and debated, certainly in our country, though I've spent a fair, and the military leadership has spent a fair amount of time on Yemen far before December 25th. I'll talk about just three areas briefly. One is the broader Middle East focus. It's been a priority. It's been my top priority since I took this job over 2 years ago, because I think it's the most dangerous part of the world, and that stability there, security there is as vital there as anywhere on the globe right now. And continuing events, as was pointed out, the potential for great instability or greater instability is significant. And so many of us have focused on that area heavily, and I think we will be certainly for the foreseeable future. And it's certainly Iraq, where, and I was just on a trip to Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan just before the holidays. And in Iraq, I was actually moved by the fact that most of the people I discussed issues with wanted to talk about economics, and they wanted to talk about development. And clearly we're on a path right now where we will start to withdraw significant numbers of troops here after the elections on the 7th of March. And we'll be down to 50,000 by next summer, and by the end of 11, the plan is that all American troops are out of Iraq. And we've worked hard to put those plans together, and basically we're on track. That doesn't mean that there aren't challenges or it's going to be easy. There are huge political challenges there. We understand that. I've been taken in recent months by the fact that in these very tragic bombings, when so many lives were lost in Iraq, that there was not a sectarian response, and that in fact the government there adjusted and is learning to deal with these kinds of things, and that was reinforced by my most recent visit. By no means do I want to send a message that we're taking our eye off Iraq, because that's not the case. We still have challenges there. Al-Qaeda is still there, and very specifically Al-Qaeda in Iraq planning spectacular bombings like the ones that we've seen, the three that we've seen in recent months. And so we're very vigilant there, but I'm very pleased with where we are and the direction that we're headed in. Afghanistan and Pakistan. This was, I think it was my 14th trip to Pakistan since I've been chairman. And it speaks to the priority. It speaks to, from my perspective, the need to continue to build a relationship and build it on a basis of relearned trust, because we've lost trust between the two countries across the board. And we were on a 12-year gap from 1990 to 2002. We don't have strong military-to-military relationships because there wasn't any way to do that in that gap. And so for the last several years, we've worked hard to head that in the right direction, and we'll continue to do that. And in fact, the focus of the Afghanistan-Pakistan strategy and the President's decision is every bit as much on Pakistan as it is on Afghanistan. That gets lost sometimes in the focus on how many troops, but it's not about troops. That's certainly a critical part of it. It's about essentially a region that must be addressed, and must be addressed in a way that moves positively towards better security, and not in the direction that it certainly is going in Afghanistan right now. I was actually impressed in Pakistan that, and I've been with their chief of the army many times. We went up to SWAT, and I spent all day in SWAT, and essentially was very impressed with the progress that they had made, the minimal collateral damage that was inflicted, and less than a year ago, quite frankly. There wouldn't have been many of us that would have expected that kind of outcome in SWAT, when SWAT was going so badly at the time. And as General Kiani pointed out to me, this was the completion of his 9th operation over the last year to year and a half. And he's got a military that's lost a lot of soldiers, an awful lot wounded, and has also been pressed certainly on an operational tempo, as it actually has come to learn counterinsurgency, much as we had post-2006 when we had the surge in Iraq. So clearly, and there are an awful lot of Pakistani citizens losing their lives because of the terrorist activities inside that country. And we are working hard to form a mutual path to eliminate the terrorists, and certainly from the United States perspective, get at those safe havens where al-Qaeda leadership still lives and plans and leads al-Qaeda and certainly is very much tied to threatening us, and there's no better indication of that than what happened here in Detroit on the 25th of December. So an awful lot of effort there. The President's decision to add the 30,000 troops to increase and accelerate the civilian surge into Afghanistan, to focus on the development, to focus on governance from the districts up through national level, to really focus on corruption as well. And I believe we've got the right leadership there. And so now, for certainly our main goal in Afghanistan and Pakistan over the next couple of years is to execute that strategy. Don't leave the broader Middle East and South Asia without talking about Iran. Usually when I talk about the broader Middle East, and I may academically get this wrong, but it's sort of Tehran to Beirut and everything in between, and you know, the continuing concern with Iran and its development, I believe its strategic intent to have nuclear weapons, and I think that would be incredibly destabilizing, not least of all because of the potential for an arms race in that world, which is exactly what we don't need, as well as their continued support for terrorism, whether it's Hezbollah or Hamas or other terrorist groups that they are supporting.